What's up, guys? This is Pete, and welcome back to the Carrot Poker Podcast. This is the second episode of the series, 3 Students, 1 Hand. Wait, that's backwards, isn't it? 1 student. There's only one of you, right, Greg?
That's right.
How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm not so great. I've been, dying of the cold. You know, how men get the cold and they call it the flu when it's actually just a cold?
It's the man cold.
Yeah, so it's really, really bad. As you know, you can obviously sympathize with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before I succumb to that, though, thought we better record a podcast. So it's not 3 students, 1 hand. It's 1 student with 3 hands. So you've got 3 hands for me today, right?
I do.
Awesome. Let's introduce you first, though, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So you and I we did a 10 session coaching package.
Yeah.
And before that, I had played, I don't know, maybe a half a year, kind of jumping around at the micro stakes. Had some success at 25 NL, but overall was just a losing player. So any success I did have was probably just run good. And then from there, figured it was time to spend a little money, do the coaching package, and now we're here.
Right, so we just finished 10 lessons.
Yeah.
So obviously 10 lessons is not it's not going to fix your game instantly, but hopefully you've learned enough theory now that you're on the road to progression. How's it been going since we last spoke?
Yeah, a lot better. Just playing pretty consistently well now at 10 NL.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just overall, I think the mental game's improved a lot because before it was trying to get in as much volume as possible and just having these, marathon sessions that wouldn't really go anywhere, and then your eyes are shot, your brain's shot, just sore and everything, and you didn't really learn a whole lot. So I think that was kind of misguided. And
I just
now
did it to myself today. I've been playing Hearthstone all day because I've been sick. I don't know if any of you listeners know Hearthstone, but it's a really, really fun game. And by Blizzard, check it out. But I was it's a really skillful game, right? So you're having to think a lot about every little decision you make, and sometimes it gets grotesquely complicated, like a really complex chess position or something. And I was playing today, and I was man, I'm just playing horribly, and I'm just cramming in all these games and all this volume. And it's the same thing, right? If you force yourself to play too much, your brain goes into meltdown, and it's just all about the volume and it's all about quantity and not quality, and it doesn't really go well for any kind of player, poker, Hearthstone, chess, whatever. You've definitely got to balance the volume with the study, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was a bit of misguided information on my part, reading the wrong forums and stuff, where I thought the volume was kind of the answer, but now I just do a lot more. I play a lot less, but I do a lot more offline work, and aside from small periods of run bad, it's otherwise going pretty well.
Cool. Yeah, you get that kind of that fallacy. I occasionally get a student who comes to me and they're I know that I'm okay, I'm going to win, I just have to ride through the variance, I just have to play 6.5 million hands until the variance is gone. And it's bro, if you were actually a winning player, you wouldn't need more than if you played 65,000 hands at 10 NL, you'd probably be winning, But you do get that sometimes. I mean, yes, there's variance in poker. Yes, if you play a bigger sample, you're more likely to realise your win rate. But your win rate might be negative. You don't need to work on that first before you cram in lots of volume. I think that's the point. But anyway, we've got 3 hands here today, so hopefully going over these will help you with your game and also help everyone else with theirs. I had a look at them before we started the call today. And yeah, they're definitely really good hands, I think, in the sense that they're not crazy spots where it's holy shit, I'm having a meltdown, I don't know what to do in this weird situation that never happens. They're quite common spots, right, that you get in all the time.
Yeah, that was a goal. I tried to pick some more common spots that, for a long time I probably didn't even necessarily realize were common, or just if I am losing some value there that I wasn't totally aware of it. So I figured it's a good thing to re-examine.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many spots like that. They're not really very glamorous or anything, but they are the bread and butter spots that happen all the time. And so, just improving your mechanical decisions in all of these spots is so important for your win rate. So there's a theme today. I think there's a jack in every single. There's just jacks all over the place, basically. You don't have pocket jacks ever, but you have at least a jack in your hand. There's always at least a jack on the board. So I think that's the theme for today. You
For
know, funny
sure.
story, I was writing my next book, 100 Hands, yesterday, and I'm giving each hand a title. So I'm kind of like, how do I name 100 poker hands? Like, are there 100 names that you can allocate to poker hands? And I've resorted to stuff like, like jacking off, and then being like, no, I can't do that. Like, just making puns out
Yeah.
of the cards. My friend Carl was like, "For king, your mum." I was like, yeah, maybe not, but yeah,
Depends on your audience. It might work.
I guess so. Yeah. But I'm trying to make them like actually relevant to the hand, but it's really hard to describe. Oh, here we're on the turn with Jack 10 and we checked behind. How do you put that into like three catchy words? It's not like an action movie that can have like a snazzy title. But anyway, more about the book later. Hand one. So we're in the cutoff here, and we have Jack of clubs, 10 of clubs, right? And let's
Yes.
see what happens. So hijack raises to three big blinds, and hijack is a 20. No, hijack is a 0-0 over two hands.
Correct.
And we're like 173.9 effective. So
Yep.
villain basically could well be a reg. You probably know there's probably quite a lot of regs in this pool who are unknown to you every day, right? Like, it's a big pool.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can't say, oh, we don't know him. He's probably a fish. It's not like we're playing in a small pool. So probably could well be some kind of reg. We'll just go with that read. His sizing's 3x, which is what a reg would do from there. It's also what a fish would do from there. So no real player reads yet. He opens to 3. We call in the cutoff. Now, this call's usually going to be absolutely fine. It's going to depend slightly on who's behind, because if you get like really reggy tables with like habitual 3-betters, it can be better to develop a strategy where you just 3-bet everything you play in this position and just go like really linear, but it's not necessary, because I can see behind you you've done a really cool thing, which is take a picture of the hand, of the table at the time as well, so I can like scan ahead and be like, oh look, there's a 14-7 in the small blind, there's another unknown in the big blind, there's another unknown in the button. So we're kind of happy to have a calling range here, and Jack 10 is gonna make it into that calling range. So far so good. Flop.
So then, would you say on that, with if there were heavy 3-betters behind, would Jack 10 suited would even go into that linear 3-bet range?
Yeah, it definitely could, because you want to construct that linear 3-bet range in terms of playability, not just all the biggest hands. So I'd like 3-bet Jack 10 suited obviously before I 3-bet King Jack off in that spot for sure.
Yeah,
It's going to play a lot better when called by hijack. You're not going to be dominated as much because your 10 is not like, he's not flatting too many 10x, better 10x, and your suitedness and connectedness is going to just make it a more playable hand. So things like that can go into like the bottom of a linear range there. Yeah.
Perfect.
So 2 players to the flop then, us and the unknown hijack. He's 3x. We've called cutoff. Flops come Jack 8-5 with the Jack of hearts and the 5 of hearts and 8 of diamonds. So 2-tone flop. We have Jack 10 of clubs, which is close to my favourite hand in No Limit Hold'em, which is Jack 9 of clubs. So kind of soft spot for Jack 10 of clubs, but it's not quite up there. So on the flop, villain goes ahead and bets 5 into 7.5. What do you think of villain's sizing?
I think the sizing looks like a value bet. To me, it doesn't. I mean, his range is still uncapped, so it's. I did take it as more than just a range bet.
So I don't think it should be a range bet. Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if he was like. I mean, people do c-bet too much at 10 and L. It's definitely a trend, but I'd still be kind of surprised if he was just c-betting like any 2 cards for that sizing.
Exactly.
But whether that makes it a value bet, I don't know if that's quite the right term of phrase. I might say it makes his range more polarized, perhaps, if he's reasonable. Like, he might be polarizing his range more by betting larger. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I guess that's a better way to put it, because he should be betting his bluffs around the same size as well then, eh?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to like assume that a reg was like wildly unbalanced there and like randomly bet smaller with bluffs and bigger with value hands or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, he could also just be a random fish just betting too wide. It could be anything for all we know. I think we just want to like play our range here, basically, and just make sure we're not folding too much right off the bat on the flop. And we have Jack 10. So I think raising would be very, very strange indeed. Folding would also be ridiculous. So I mean, flop is just like the most standard call I've ever seen, probably.
Yeah, and with no hearts and no other. I mean, it's not I don't have a real strong hand, but happy to flop top pair. So a raise would be out of the question. But I think it's a easy call.
Yeah, definitely an easy call. Like, calling's a lot better than folding in a vacuum, and we don't want to fold this much of our range against anyone except the most absurd net that we're only calling against pre to make a straight or a flush, and that's obviously not the case. So we call flop and turns the 3 of clubs, which is the blankest of blanks. So we're now reading Jack 8, 5, 3 with 2 hearts. This is the really interesting part of the hand for me is the turn. Hijack checks, and we have the decision whether or not we should bet here. So what were your thoughts at the time here?
I figured I wanted to bet for protection. I certainly don't want to see a queen, king, or ace fall.
Right, so Jack 10 in a sense is like quite a vulnerable Jack, isn't it? Because there's 3 overcards to it, rather than when we have like King Jack or something, there's only 2 cards that we're really worried about seeing. So it's a more vulnerable hand, certainly, than like something like King Jack is, yep. So more protection by betting it.
Yeah, no, I'm just not sure of my sizing, and this is something I often question, but I bet a dollar into a $1.75 pot.
Okay.
And so not quite sure if I've achieved that protection or not, or if that would be sufficient.
Okay, so let's recap the pot size here. So flop was 7.5 BBs, he bet 5, we called, turn is now 17.5 BBs, and he checks, and you chose to bet 10 BBs.
Correct.
Right. So certainly if you're betting here, I don't think it can be like a polar range that you're betting, because I think Jack 10 is kind of one of the weaker jacks. It's probably going to be a check if you're like why would you bet the turn with this hand? You're not getting check called by like loads of worse hands. It wouldn't make sense if you were betting polar here to bet this hand. I think on the turn though, you could certainly make a case for just betting everything in your range for like a smaller size. And the reason is, like, if you're range betting the turn, it's weird to think about range betting as a thing you do on the turn. Like, I realize it's normally something people talk about on the flop.
Right.
But when we've called here, if you think about it, we actually have a big range advantage after he checks turn. Because what's happened is, like, he started off with a slight advantage, and actually he should have checked the flop quite often with a lot of his range, because he is out of position here. Then what happens is, when he bets the flop and we call, he still has air in his range, because his range is, like, filtered. Is not, but our range is really filtered because we can't have air, because we've, like, called. We could have some draws and stuff like that, but certainly our floats will have some equity. We're not just going to call, like, king, queen off for no reason on the flop. And then the rest of our range is, like, you know, pair of 8s plus, basically, so it's, like, fairly strong. So we definitely have, when he then checks the turn, he kind of says, like, I probably don't have, like, the very top of my range. I don't have, like, a set. I don't have, like, that many overpairs, because people at 10NL don't actually check enough to balance their check-fold range. You know, when they are checking, they're check-folding a lot of the time. So we definitely have a big range advantage here, both strategically and against, like, the actual population in a more exploitative sense as well. And when you've got a big range advantage like you do here, but a lot of your hands are vulnerable, because the board is only jack high, you know, it's not ace high. Like, I wouldn't range bet on an ace high board, because there's just so many hands that need no protection at all, like ace rag or pocket queens or something that you might have. But this hand does need some protection, and your range, more to the point, can either bet for value or protection, or it's a semi-bluff. There's not really a hand in your range that really hates betting. Even a hand like ace-8 suited, if you had that, would, or 8-9 suited, maybe a more accurate pre-flop holding, would want to bet here on jack 8-5-3 because it protects its equity. So it's not like a really bad bet with 8-9, like it would be a bad bet with king-queen on ace-king 6-6, right? It's very different. So because your range wants all this protection, and you're in position with this range advantage, I think the best line that you can take here is to actually bet small with everything you can have on the turn. And your sizing's fine for that. I mean, it's just over half pot. You could knock a little bit off it if you wanted to bet 9 BBs into 17.5. That would be okay. I'm going to let you speak in a minute, because, like, I can barely breathe. But I'll just finish this thought. So the idea of range betting doesn't just happen on the flop. It happens anytime when protection is an issue, we're in position, we've got a big kind of advantage in the hand. So what do you think about that? Like, thinking more about your range there than just what this hand wants to do.
Yeah, I think too, I could capitalize on the same fold equity with a slightly smaller sizing. Is that also accurate?
Because if you're betting your whole range, it's like what you're talking about on the flop. When you range bet flop, you're doing it because you want protection, you want to make villain fold air. You're usually not doing it to apply loads of pressure right now or for value, right? You're usually doing it for protection, you're doing it with a merged range, you're doing it with mediocre hands. Same goes here. So your sizing should be small. Whereas if you were polarized, then you're either going for like super thick value or you're like applying max pressure, and then your sizing should be big. So your sizing depends on the intentions of your range, not just of your hand. But your sizing's good here. Whether that's coincidence or not, who knows? But it happened to be good sizing for sure. Maybe you were. I think you're part of the way there, considering that it is mainly a protection bet. If you then extrapolate from that, that your range is mainly betting sort of for a float, for protection, for thin value, then it makes sense to bet small. Always think about what's my range doing here, unless you're against a fish, and then that question, if you ask that question, if you answer it correctly, it should guide you to the best size.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so we bet 10, he calls, which is a little unexpected. Let's quickly just put this guy on, like, what hands we think the reg population would do this with, like check call as preflop raiser on the turn, Jack 8, 5, 3 with 2 hearts.
Yeah, and deep stack too, so I'm always wondering how that plays in, but it could be certainly some pocket pairs, maybe 2 hearts, any ace-x suited with hearts.
The thing with that is, though, would you not rather bet with a flush draw, though? Would you not rather just be semi-bluffing rather than give up a way of winning the pot and just check call with like ace-7 of hearts? It seems like pretty bad.
I wonder if, now, being this deep stack, though, would that be possibly a good strategy to avoid bloating the pot without having that positional advantage, or
no,
is it still a better bet?
Yeah, I mean, with ace-10 of hearts or something, you're lacking showdown value. So if you start check calling, you're only ever going to win the pot when you get there. Like, otherwise, you're just going to lose.
Yeah.
And you've just capped your range as well, which makes it impossible to get fold equity later. Like, sure, there's hands that want to pot control that don't want to get raised. Like, if he check calls aces here with a heart, especially, I think that's really good. I think that's a really sensible way to play aces with a heart. But not like an ace-x flush draw hand, because like what you're trying to achieve there is completely different. You're trying to apply pressure when you've got the semi-bluff, not like shy away and, keep the pot smaller. That's the job of your more medium strength made hands to do that, not your like nutted draws. They want to apply pressure. So I don't think you should have ace-7 of hearts here. I think like some overpairs, some jack-x, like a lot of ace-jack, king-jack, that kind of thing for sure. Maybe some combos of like 10s and 9s at the bottom. But I reckon that your hand is now, when you get called, not in very good shape. But that's kind of the point. We weren't really betting for thick value. That's why we bet small. We were betting mainly for protection with this hand in a range that's mainly betting for either protection or thin value. So, it's fine.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to be in great shape here. So river's the queen of hearts. So flush draw is complete, which is, fairly nice in the sense that we can have them and he really can't have that many because he shouldn't be check calling just like some random flush draw. Okay. So we should have more flush draws than him now, more flushes than him. We should have a strongest range here. The board now reads Jack 8, 5, 3, Queen with 3 hearts. The Queen of Hearts getting there coming down in the river, so the flush is getting there in the river. He checks to us. So I guess the only question now is like, do we turn our hand into a bluff, right? Because surely we're not like considering value betting the river. That would be crazy.
Right.
So what did you think on that?
Yeah, I thought at the time that check back was kind of mandatory. I didn't, I guess, and actually just seeing my own notes here, I guess I did consider like there's still Queen X as well that could have got there on the river. I mean, when you say now to make like a bluff bet, I guess that's possible. Try and scare him off those hands, but this was. I felt like a check back was mandatory, hoping for some showdown value. So, wondering what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a vacuum, it's actually going to be pretty good to bet here. To be honest, I think I think a lot of hands like aces, kings, jack, better jacks than yours, ace, jack, king, jack, could well fold here. I think you have 10-9. He absolutely shouldn't have 10-9. If you think about it, your range is super uncapped and his is capped because he's check call turn. He should be betting 10-9. He should be betting ace-4 of hearts. Right. So I feel like you have a stronger range. Now, would it be a balanced thing to turn Jack 10 of clubs with no heart into a bluff? Probably not, because you'd have a lot of weaker hands you could do that with. So I think it would constitute over bluffing on your part. Is that a problem? Should you do it anyway? Perhaps it would be fine just to fire a really big bet here and just apply pressure against this population. Like, you're repping like so much here, you shouldn't really have any air. I don't mind it if you choose to bluff this river. I don't think check back is. I think check back is normal from a balance perspective, but I wouldn't rule it out as like. I wouldn't rule out betting. because you might just find that his range is quite capped and you can just get a lot of folds from better hands, because I think at Showdown you're going to lose quite often here to like Ace Jacks and stuff like that, which I think will fold quite often. So I really don't mind if you make a big river bet here.
Okay, and in terms of the population pool at 10 NL versus like 50 NL, would you expect, though, maybe a few too many calls at this? Like, that would also be in the back of my mind, kind of more of a stationy population.
I mean, if the regs are horrible enough to call me with Ace Jack on this river, like, I don't know, I kind of just feel like throwing my mouse at the screen and, you know, moving up. Although that's a terrible way, like, that's terrible advice for any student. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we don't even know that he's a reg. That's one problem, is he could just turn out to be some kind of whale. You know, there's only 2 hands we have on him, over which he's 0-0. So, yeah, I take your point. I mean, I think it would work better if we knew that Villain was like 2014, 18-16, that kind of shit. If we don't know who he is, I take your point that maybe it moves it slightly more towards a check. But we've discussed the main points there, I think. So let's move on, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, hand number 2. So we have Queen Jack suited here. And we're in the small blind. And we open to 2.5x, which is your standard size recommended by me because your population overfolds the spot, right?
Correct.
They fold their big blind too often, so I've said, Greg, stop making it 3x there. Like, just kill these guys. They're not flatting. Make it good for them to flat. That's how you beat people. You make it good for them to do what they're not doing. So that's why we 2.5x our big blind instead of 3. Higher stakes people will 3 because they understand that you can't just give someone like really good pot odds to call when they already have position, or you make it too easy for them to call too much of their range. But that's another story. So we 2.5x and big blind, who's 20-20 unknown over 5 hands, probably a reg though. We are 115.8 effective stack, big blinds. So what happens here is that so the flop comes down
about 120 effective with my stack. So big blinds about 150 deep. But yeah, I've got Queen Jack suited to diamonds.
Yeah.
He flats, and then the flop comes 7 of hearts, King of diamonds, and Queen of clubs.
Yeah. Okay, so we go for a check call on the flop.
Yeah, I think with middle pair, hitting the queens there, that I probably have the best hand a lot of the time, but don't see I don't see the need to bet being out of position, and you know, it also gives Villain a chance to bluff and kind of build the pot that way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing where I say to a student, like, if money goes in, how would you like to have put it in? Would you have liked to bet and just been called by, like, a range you're not doing that well against, or would you like to have check called and let him bet, like, anything? And
yeah, exactly. He's not folding better or calling with worse.
I mean, he probably is calling with worse if you bet, but that doesn't make it the best line. Like, he probably does call with a 7, he probably does call with a worse queen. He'll call with a gut shot as a float, but that doesn't necessarily help you out. You might lose the hand against some of these hands anyway, depending how it plays out. So by check calling, you control the size of the pot, you protect your check fold range, which you're going to have quite a bit of here because you're out of position on a board where both players have a lot of King X and Queen X, you know? Like, it's not like you have ace king and you have kings and queens and he doesn't, but you're talking about 18 combos there. It's not very much over, you know, talking about a range that's opened like 540 combos or whatnot in the small blind. So, yeah, you should definitely be check calling the flop, and the turn as well is no-brainer check calling. You should go from there. But this is strange what happens in this hand. I'm going to skip to the river here because I'll talk about the turn very quickly. What happens is we check. He bets flop for 2 big blinds into 5, so very small flop sizing, kind of like weird, like he's betting too wide or he's the fish or something. I'm not sure what that means, but we call it. And on the turn is the 7 of spades, so the board is 7 of hearts, King of diamonds, Queen of clubs, 7 of spades. And the turn checks through. And then on the river, the 2 of spades, so pretty much a complete blank, no flushes possible. Yes. We check again, and I guess like your river check is somewhat interesting because I think it's definitely feasible to like consider just betting for value now. So what made you decide to check there?
Yeah, I guess maybe it's more applicable here than on the flop that it does give Villain a chance to bluff his air. I do have decent showdown value, and I figured there's still a lot of weak king X,
Yeah.
king 5 suited, maybe, hands like that would
Sure.
that would play this way, that would take a little stab on the flop and
Yeah.
and then kind of give up and just go to showdown. So so I felt like I don't know, maybe there's an argument to get a little value on the river though.
I think the thing is with the board being king queen 7-7, deuce, like you're chopping with all the worst queens. So betting for value against queen X doesn't really work here. So I think you're absolutely right. Actually, I think checking here, starting with a check is like the most normal thing to do, because we need him to call us with like ace high or some low pocket pair or some deuce for betting to be that good. And he's not going to have those hands very often. He will have a king, like you say, sometimes, and he'll never put money into the pot with air, like when we bet. So I think check call is the most normal thing to me. But the thing is, like, the only question you might want to ask yourself is this population just, afraid of bluffing when the turn's checked through? Because see every 10NL reg that I've ever worked with, they'd be like, what? I can't bluff in that spot. Like, I rep nothing. I checked the turn. They don't understand that they check the turn with, like, king X as well. They river pocket deuces on the river sometimes. They do have a value range on the river, so they can bluff and they can balance it. But I think it's a very common belief in the reg population here that you don't bet after it goes bet check, right? I feel like a lot of them don't bluff enough in this spot. I don't know if that read is enough for me to fold the river to a 2/3 pot size bet. Probably not, given that Villain could also be a non-standard member of the population. He could be a reg that's actually aware that he should have a bluffing range. Minority, but it could be. Or it could be a fish. We don't know. So I think I would still check call the river, but I would bear in mind that, a lot of the time these regs are afraid of bluffing in this kind of spot. And if I thought that he was especially tight or ABC, I would just fold here and be like, you have a king like 85% of the time, because they don't bluff in that spot.
Okay, yeah, so taking the same line, but doing it more because we want to avoid any of his, losing money to any of his king X, and not so much because we think he'll bluff his air, because it's unlikely to happen.
I just think that after we check, we have to call. Like, without a read that he's tight, because there's other player types that will bluff here. I'm just saying your average ABC reg won't. But we don't know if he's an average ABC reg. We don't know anything about him. He could be a more competent reg who will bluff here. He could be a fish who will bluff here. So that's my point. He might be a fish that randomly bets pocket eights for no reason. We just don't know. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, we check because I don't really like betting. And then we choose between check call and check fold based on our population reads. And if we knew he was like a complete ABC reg, I would fold. But because he could be other player types as well, I think you're going to have to call here, and it should be fine. But I just want to make the point that the ABC reg will underbluff the spot dramatically. So if we knew it was him, we might find an very exploitative fold here. It would be very exploitative for this hand. It's very far up our range when we don't lead the river.
Yeah.
It's like the top of our range.
All right, yeah, so, and I don't know if you have the results there, but yeah, it turned out to be total air, that he did go for the bluff on the river.
Well, there you go.
Maybe
the games are evolving, and you will run into that more these days than you would have before. So it's good to see. I mean, it depends what he has. Like, if he has, there's the difference between total air that's got good blockers that he should be using, and then just some hand that he just should never be bluffing with.
Yeah, so actually that's a good point. So 10-8 offsuit.
All right, yeah, that's all right, because he's blocking pocket 10s, pocket 8s, which might call. What else is he blocking? He's blocking you from having, like, some weak king, like king 8 or king 10, although I think you would have led those. But the point is as well that with a 10 and an 8, he has like no showdown value, so he's bluffing from the bottom of his range upwards, which is also a correct approach. So I think that's fine. He's never going to win with 10 high. So don't think that shows that he overbluffs. It just shows that he's aware enough to have a bluffing range. So it shows that he could be a solid player, or he could be a fish. We don't know, but certainly doesn't seem like a really bad thing for him to do anything like that with 10-8. No.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, that it shouldn't really be considered total air, because it's really the right play with.
Well, it is total air, but it's the right total air to use. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Let's move on to hand 3, so we don't run out of time. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
Hand 3, we have Queen Jack of Hearts instead of diamonds this time. Loads of variety in today's podcast. The Jack changes suit every hand. What more could you ask for, right?
Yeah, I figured though it was nice kind of now we switch positions. We're in the big blind, villains in the small blind.
Yeah, it's like, how do you like it now? We're the one with position. Okay, cool.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
he opens to 2.7 big blinds, the small blind, who's 17-17. Again, like no sample here, 6 hands. Looks like a
Exactly.
reg, 2.7. Like, what fish can be bothered typing that in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So probably a reg. We call, all these things help. People say, like in my book right now, I'm always starting off with little things like, villain is probably this kind of player. And it's important because when you make that read at the start of the hand, you make kind of a big deal about it in your head. You don't forget it, and then you can keep going with that read all through the hand.
Right.
So villain is probably some kind of decent player, or not decent player, but for the population is more on the reg side. We flat this 1.7x, we flat 1.7 BBs in the big blind, and we have Jack of Diamonds, 5 of Spades, 6 of Diamonds, and again we're holding Queen of Hearts, Jack of Hearts. So flop top pair, very huge hand here relative to what's actually going on, like given that it's blind versus blind, and he bets 3.4. Would you be range betting here, or would you be betting more polarized from out of position?
I think I would be from out of position. I would be more polarized.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So we don't know that that's true of the average reg. Does the average reg, in your opinion, see bet too little or too much in these games?
Probably too much.
Yeah, definitely too much. Correct answers. Average reg C bet is like 70%, which is way more than he should. So, and most of the bad spewy C bets, it won't surprise you to learn that they come from out of position in these players' games.
Yeah.
So probably this guy's like just way too wide when he C bets the flop, which means we should be over defending the flop, right? We should be raising, maybe not raising against this size in particular, but certainly calling a lot, floating a lot here to see if he gets up, basically, right? That would be my play with so many hands, not just indiscriminately, but I'd be doing it with the more suitable floats. But with Queen Jack, I'd certainly just call the flop, go from there, and look to call turn as well because I'm so far up my range. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
We call flop. Yeah, go on.
Just a question on the flop there. What would be like if you had to make a slight adjustment to the same hand, Jack Queen of Hearts? What would be a suitable raise
Nothing.
to have like Queen of Diamonds or?
No, nothing. I wouldn't raise anything on that flop. I don't really see why we need to against big sizing.
Okay.
And we're in position, so like the reason that we raise out of position against like a range bet is that we can't just let villain see the turn and river for like that tiny bet that he put in there for that 2/5 pot. But this is a big bet, it's 2/3 pot, and we have position, so we can make sure money goes in the turn and protect our equity and get value if we want to. So there's no reason to deploy a raising range yet against big sizing in position. Just wait till a later street. There's no point having a raising range on that flop at all. Like, if you get, and raising a hand like Queen Jack, like that's just terrible because you're building a huge pot when you don't need to, and you can get 3-bet, and you're not gaining much by doing it. So definitely don't raise here, but do raise out of position against small bets when you need to apply pressure and deny free cards, and when villain's range is a lot weaker. Because here, like, he could have a polarized range anyway, against which you definitely don't want to raise just top pair queen kicker. No.
Yeah.
So
okay. Makes
nothing's
sense.
a good raise there. I mean, there's hands that are better than others, but as a strategy, nothing. Like, don't raise anything.
Sure.
9 of spades on the turn, so Jack 6-5, 2 diamonds on the flop, and then the 9 of spades rolls off on the turn, so there's 2 spades now as well. So double flush draw board, he bets again for 7.7 BBs into 12.12 BBs. Sorry, 12.2 BBs. You're still there, Greg, yeah?
Yes.
Connection went a bit funny there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm here.
Good. Alright, so on the turn then, we are going to call again, right? There's not really much else to do.
Yeah, and villain does really still have an uncapped range.
Sure.
So again, no reason to raise this pot to really bloat the pot. So and I do feel like in a blind versus blind spot, I'd probably be overfolding to fold top pair with medium to good kicker.
You think you'd be you'd be folding turn or folding river?
I think to fold turn would just be
yeah.
way overfolding.
Yeah,
just be a mistake. So
yeah, drastically. Definitely. I mean, you could raise for information, not because that's a terrible reason to raise, but that's the point. There's just no reason to raise here at all. Like, there's no value. Like, you don't want to, like, for some reason get 3-bet. You're not protecting much. You just want to call. So we do call, and then we get the ace of diamonds on the river. on which he bets 17.4 into 27.6. So again, he's making this kind of 2/3 pot size bet-ish. And yeah, I mean, everything just got there. Like flush draws has got there, a pair of aces got there. Not that he's going to value bet a pair of aces necessarily on that card, but it gives him less bluffs, right? Like ace-x of spades now is not bluffing or doesn't. Either has got there and is betting for thin value or wouldn't be betting at all because it doesn't need to bluff. So I think like calling this river would be overcalling your range. I don't think you need to call this hand. You've still got loads of good hands. You're in position. Yeah, I would just be mucking here really quickly, especially with like this population. Like they don't triple that much, right?
Yeah, I mean we'd need to be. So what is it? Required equity is about just under 30%. So, but I just didn't feel like I'd even have the best hand that often with a triple barrel like this out of position, and kind of looking like value bets all the way through.
I mean, avoid that. I don't like that thought, looking like value bets all the way through, because that's kind of going back to the flop and being like, of course it looks like a value bet on the flop. Like that's making a weird assumption that he bets a different size with a bluff.
Okay.
Right? It's not that. It's not that it's value bets all the way through. It's the third one. It's like his range is getting narrower street by street. So it's more that when he bets for the third time, he wouldn't do that with bluffs, or the bluffs have got there, or the bluffs don't need to bluff anymore. It's one of those three things. It's not so much that we can go back and like suddenly soul read his bet size from the flop or turn. I think that's just guessing. But I think on the river we've got a really legitimate reason to think that his range is mostly value hands for sure.
Okay, right. So he'd be betting polar if anything. So it could still very well be a bluff, but like you say, more just that his range is narrower and narrower, and then the ace of diamonds on the river is, I mean, maybe the worst card.
Yeah, for sure. Because it hits ace high spade draws and it hits diamond draws at the same time.
Yeah,
it just hits everything. And then your range is so far down your hand is so far down your range, it blocks nothing of use really. I think it's just a really easy fold unless you want to go into like insane overcalling mode against this population that's not very aggressive on the river, which would just be a big mistake. So I think you played all of those hands like really well. Like, I can't see a single real mistake in any of those hands. I mean, some of your thoughts I've corrected, but that's why it's important, in coaching to go over not just the hand and be like, yeah, good job. Next, you want to say, why did you do that? What were you thinking? Because we've found a few thought process leaks, even though you happen to play those hands well on those occasions. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, excellent.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. That was really good. 3 really nice spots, not too glamorous, but very educational nonetheless. So hopefully we'll get you back on in, I don't know, a few episodes time or whatever, do some more hands and see where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Cool. All right, Greg, take it easy.
Okay.
As for you listeners, we will continue every couple of weeks for now. The new book is on its way. Don't know, September, October. Bear with me on this. I'll keep you guys updated. It's 100 hands. It's a bunch of hand analysis, solid kind of practice accompaniment to the Grounder's Manual, basically, which was the theory. So I'll keep you updated on that shit. It'll be out, I hope, by the fall. But yeah, just stay tuned for it. And yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. I'll have another student on the show. We'll do a few more hands and we'll keep the content coming. Hope you guys are well. Hope you're running good. And good luck at the tables. I'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening. All right, we're done.
Awesome. Yeah, did you have any of the echo that sometimes happens on your end?
No echo today. I thought we were done, but we're not done. I left the recorder running. So that was a little freebie for anyone that followed that song right till the end. Hope you enjoyed me and Greg having a normal conversation there. See you next time.
I knew I'd screw it up somehow.